Hello, grade 11 STEAM learners. As I promised you, I will have to capture in an audio or a video presentation on the part 2 of our lesson, which is all about the nomenclature. This is in continuation on our learning competency about uh, writing chemical formula and naming of common compounds. So before we start, I have here a thinky statement. I don't know if it is a joke or it is a blobby mind to capture your attention about what did magnesium and chlorine say to gold when she walked into the room. So what do you think? So think it out and we will have to reveal the answer after our lesson. I have here a picture of a certain compound. And kindly please identify what is the common name and what is the chemical formula and the compound name of this particular item. All right, let us reveal the answer. So the common name, of course, is baking soda. This is used in making bread or making any cookies or for for baking. The chemical name is sodium bicarbonate. And the chemical formula is NaHCO3, a composition of sodium, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. This is actually a ternary compounds because it composed of three or more number of elements. So it has also a combination or it has a polyatomic ions. How about this? We are using this one in our where? As disinfectant, as antiseptic, or it is used as uh, cleaning our clothes? Yes, the common name is what? Bleach or Zonrox or Clorox. Zonrox is a brand, I think, and the Clorox is a common name for other people. Then we have the chemical name of sodium hypochlorite. Then the chemical formula is NaClO. How about this one? Your muriatic acid. You are so familiar about this because we are using it in cleaning our toilet or lavatory. So we are using always the muriatic acid. Remember, class, that muriatic acid that we have used is not a concentrated or pure hydrochloric acid. It has or it is diluted with a percentage or some percentage of water. So the common name is muriatic acid. Chemical name is hydrochloric acid. And the chemical formula is HCl. We have more common names. The chalk or the marble is is pure calcium carbonate, and the chemical formula is CaCO3. The milk of magnesia is the magnesium hydroxide or MgOH. Then MSG or monosodium glutamate or your Vitsin C5H8 NaAO4. Silica or glass, silicon dioxide is IO4. Ethyl alcohol or ethanol, you have C2H6O. Battery acid, sulfuric acid, H2SO4. And the vinegar that we are using every day sa ating masarap na paksiw is your acetic acid or HC2H3O2. So before we start naming the compounds, what is the reason or what are the reasons why there is a need to have a common to have a chemical name or compound name of a certain chemical formula? Remember, class, that there was an agreement in the 1800s in France of all the chemists all over the world, which is the organization is IUPAC or International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, and they had agreed that there should be a specific, or there should be a rules, or there are rules in naming the chemical compound and in writing the chemical formula for them to easily understand that specific and the authenticity of a certain compounds. So let's move on to naming of compounds. Proper naming of compounds depends on the type of compounds. So it depends upon the type of compounds when you are going to name them. So identify the type of compound first, then apply the rules in naming the compound. So you have to identify how to identify a certain compound. If it is ionic compounds, if it is covalent compounds, or it is a metallic compound. So when we see ionic compounds, of course, it is a compound combination, or a combination or a compound that exists between metals and the non-metals. So if it is also binary, or we have only two number of atoms involved or two elements involved, and then you have also ternary, which involve three or more elements. So let's first identify the ionic compounds and how to name it. When we say ionic compounds, these are compounds made of metal and non-metal, or a cation. When we say cation, positive charged particle, and the anion is a negative charged particle. They form chemical bonds by transfer of electrons. Now remember, class, that you have to identify first the type of charged particles in each compounds. Remember that the cation is your positive charge. So these usually are the metals, while the negative charge or the anion are the non-metals. You can check it in your periodic table. Now, remember cat. So when we see cat, of course, it's cat will say pause, pass, pause. So it means positive. So when we see an ion then N is negative ion. So it's very easy for you to remember that an ion, negative charge. So they form chemical bonds by transfer of electrons. So by transferring of electrons for this particular compounds, or for this particular elements, the metal and the non-metals, by transferring the electrons or by having a chemical band, they will form an ionic compound. The name of the metal is written first. So this is the rule. The name of the metal is written first, followed by the non-metal. So you have to write first the metal element, the name of the metal element, then followed by the non-metal. For the non-metal, write the root word for the element and add the suffix IDA. So you have to drop the last three words, or three letters, or 3 liters, or I think also sometimes it can be also a 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 liters. It depends upon the how long the name of a particular um, ions. So we have here, you have to, for the non-metal, write the root word for the element and add suffix IDA. For polyatomic and ion, just write the name. So, pag polyatomic, pag non-metal lang siya, isang element, you have to change the suffix IDA sa kanyang last three na letters sa element. Pero pag polyatomic and ion, just write the name. So wala kang baguhin. So example, sodium, which is your positive one or your cation, plus chlorine, which is your negative anion, yields sodium chloride. So just imagine you didn't change the first name of the first element, which is your metal, still sodium, but you only change the last two letters of your chlorine. So the suffix IDA, so DA only has changed. So you have sodium chloride. Next, you have magnesium, positive, which is your cation, plus hydroxide or OH negative, which is your polyatomic anion. This is not a monoatomic. When we say mono, only one. So like magnesium is a monoatomic because it has only one element, while the hydroxide is your polyatomic anion, yields magnesium hydroxide. So you don't need to change the anything in naming in naming with polyatomic ions. Remember this one. These other examples. You have the cation, sodium, magnesium, and aluminum. Then the anion, you have chlorine, hydroxide, oxygen, nitrogen, and oxygen. So compound or the chemical compound or the chemical formula would be from Na plus Cl in a Cl. Magnesium plus hydroxide is MgOH2. Remember the the crisscross method. So you have to crisscross the number of charges of two different elements. If it is monoatomic or polyatomic, make sure that you have to write or you have to put a parenthesis in a polyatomic ions or cations or even positive ions if it reaches the number of charge into 2 over. Kung 2 pataas, so you have to put the parenthesis. Like for example, this hydroxide, magnesium has positive 2. So the charge received from hydroxide is 2, which is becoming your atom. So you have OH, only 1. So don't put magnesium 1, instead magnesium, understood to have 1 number of atom. But since hydroxide received 2 number charge, which become 2 atoms of hydroxide, you have to put it in an open parenthesis, then put the subscript 2. Then you have also Na plus O2, or sorry, Na plus oxygen, you have N2O, Mg plus nitrogen, you have Mg3, nitrogen 2, Al3O2, you have Al2O3. So in naming sodium chloride, you change the chlorine to IDA, you have chloride. Magnesium hydroxide, you don't need to change anything. The name, as per the rule, you have to follow the name, the same. So you have the same name. So you have sodium oxide. From oxygen, change to IDA, become oxide. Magnesium nitride. From nitrogen, change the suffix IDA, become nitride. Aluminum oxide. From the oxygen, change to oxide. Number 2, molecular or covalent compounds. Remember, class, that covalent compounds can also be called molecular because it is made up of 2 nonmetals. They are named by giving the name of the first nonmetal and then that of the second nonmetal, modified by the ending ITA. Molecular compounds are usually gases. So once you hear the molecular compound or covalent compound, immediately what comes in your mind is that this word referred to as made up of 2 nonmetals. Pag dalawang nonmetals, automatic covalent compounds yan. Pag nag-combine o pag nag-form ng compound, ang dalawang nonmetals. Pag nag-form naman ng compound, ang metal plus nonmetal, automatic ionic. Pag nag-form naman ng ang metal at saka yung metal mismo, dalawang metals nag-form ng compound, they are called metallic compounds. In naming of this type of compound, you have to use the numerical prefixes like number of atoms, 1. Pag number of atoms, sa numerical prefixes, ang gagamitin ay mono. So check always the number of atoms indicated in the chemical formula. So pag dalawa, di, 3, tri, and so on. The numerical prefix indicates the number of atoms for each element or polyatomic anion, and it is indicated as a subscript in the chemical formula. So makikita mo itong mga atom na to, makikita mo a subscript in the chemical formula. So yun ang dagdagan mo ng or you have to put the prefix. Example, ang first non-metal is carbon, positive 4. You have second non-metal, oxygen. So after cross, you have CO2. Why? Because you have to reduce into lowest term. So pwede na siya maging dalawa. Dalawa na lang out of 4. Yung atom received from carbon. So you have to name it carbon. The first element, which is the first non-metal, is the same name, carbon. Pero yung pangalawa, you have to change to oxide. Okay? Pero lagyan mo na siya ng di. Kasi you have to modify the second non-metal ending IDA. So ang oxygen gawing oxide. Pero ang nasa unahan, lagyan mo na ng prefix. Kasi dalawang atom yan ng oxygen, it means di. So you have carbon dioxide. How about phosphorus plus chlorine? You have PCl5. So your phosphorus, the same name, wag mong baguhin, pero yung chloride mo, yung chlorine mo, change the ending IDA from chlorine, naging chloride. Since 5 yan, ang chlorine, so naging pinta siya. So you have to write pentachloride. Reminder, the polyvalent metals like ferrum or your iron, kasi ang mga metals kasi, magkaiba-iba ng charges. So kung makikita or kung minsan naalala ninyo sa junior high school, minsan lang iron may iron 2 or may Fa2, may Fa3, may Cu2, may Cu3, copper 2, copper 3. Depende sa numerical o numeric na nilagay sa next name ng isang element. So pag once 2 siya, nakalagay ng numeric 2, ibig sabihin may dalawang charge. Pag nakalagay ng 3 na numeric, ibig sabihin may tatlong charge. So what is the rule? Like ferrum, kasi ferrum naman ang iron. So you have positive 2 or positive 3. Kasi yung ang term ng Latin word ng iron, ferrum. Use the suffix IC, become ferric. Maging ferric daw siya if, again, maging ferric din daw siya if it uses higher valence electron. Pag may mataas na valence electron, ang gagamitin mo ay ferric. So, anong ibig sabihin ng valence electron na ito? Yung charge na tinutukoy ko. So, since mataas ang 3 sa iron, 3 na numeric, ibig sabihin yung valence electron niya is 3. Ang gagamitin mo ay ferric. For lower valence or indicate the valence number used, iron 2 or iron 3, like ferric chloride. O, di ba? So, ferric chloride or iron 3 chloride. Pwede naman iron 3, pero lagyan mo siya ng numeric na 3. Pero kung hindi mo feel, lalagyan siya ng numeric na 3, so ang ipangalan mo ay ferric. So, let us illustrate more. You have Fa plus 3 plus Cl negative become cross. So you have the chemical formula of FeCl3. So use the suffix IC. The answer is ferric chloride or iron 3 chloride. So kung ang sagot mo ay iron 3 chloride, ang FeCl3, tama. Pero kung ang sagot mo naman ay ferric chloride, tama din. Pero kung ang sagot mo ferrous chloride, wrong. Note the valence or charge is higher. Kasi tatlo, which is higher, 2 or 3. So of course, the 3 valence electron. Another one, Fe plus 2 plus Cl, cross method, you have FeCl2. Use the suffix OUS kasi lower yung valence or charge niya. The answer would be ferrous chloride or iron 2 chloride. Pag sagot mo iron, the numeric na 2 chloride, tama. Kung ang sagot mo naman ay ferrous chloride, tama din. So note the valence here is lower. For ternary compounds, ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina, pag ang isang compound nag-involve ng 3 or more elements or made up of 3 elements, ang tawag doon ay ternary compounds. The naming of ternary compounds follows same role as that of ionic compound. The same role lang. The name of the cation is given first. So unang pangalanan mo yung cation, then followed by the name of an anion. Example, NaNO2. Since ang NO2 is your nitrate, then your Na is sodium, therefore you have to write is sodium nitrate. So walang baguhin. Walang baguhin. Okay? Then Ba is CrO4. Your CrO4 is your chromate. So therefore, your Ba is barium. So you have to drop the name barium chromate. Then K2SO4. So ito, ang K is your potassium. Yung SO4 naman is your sulfate. Therefore, you have to name it as potassium sulfate. So ano lang to, ito ang pinaka easy sa lahat. Next, ionic compounds can be classified further as acids and bases, and this is how you write the name. Acids are compounds made up of hydrogen and usually non-metals. And it can be classified as binary acid and polyatomic acid. So may dalawang uri ng acid daw. Binary and polyatomic. So it is made up of hydrogen and partner niya non-metals. So pag makita mo ang hydrogen na nasa unahan, nakita mo ang hydrogen sa chemical formula na pinakauna followed by a non-metals, automatic nasa isip ninyo ay acid yan. Okay? Then you have to follow this, hydrogen plus non-metal. So you have to use this rule, prefix, hydro, plus root word of the non-metal, plus IC, plus the word acid. Example, you have hydrogen as the first element, plus chlorine as your non-metal or your second element. This would be your hydrochloric acid. Why hydrochloric acid? As what I've mentioned in our rule, you have to put the word hydro. The first place you have to put the word hydro, followed by the root word of the non-metal. What is the root word of the non-metal? You have the chlorine, but you have to put the IC at as the suffix. So you have the chlorine become chloric plus the word acid. It becomes hydrochloric acid. Remember, you cannot, your answer would be wrong if you will not put the word acid. Sometimes people say hydrochloric, sulfuric. If you will not put the word acid, it means you are not identifying or naming it properly. So you have to put exactly the word acid as the last word after you have named the element or formula. Next, you have polyatomic acid, are acids composed of hydrogen and the anion. So the previous one, the binary acid, are just only 2 number of elements involved. For polyatomic, you have hydrogen plus the anion. So actually this is a polyatomic anion. So it's composed of 2 or more ions or 2 or more elements. To name this acid, use root word of the polyatomic anion. So you have to use the root word of the polyatomic anion plus the suffix IC, then the word acid. Example, hydrogen plus SO4, sulfate. So yung sulfate, i-change mo into IC. So it becomes sulfuric acid. Next, if the polyatomic ion ends with the suffix ITA, kung ang polyatomic daw nag-end ng suffix ITA, use the suffix OUS for the acid name. So you have hydrogen plus sulfite. Since sulfite is O3 end with ITA as sulfite, you have to change the suffix OUS for the acid name and the acid name, followed by the acid name. So it becomes sulfurous acid. Bases are compounds composed of metal or non-metal plus hydroxide. So kung may makikita kayong mga hydroxide na chemical formula or chemical name, yan ay base. Okay? Pero pag may makikita kayong hydrogen na pinakauna followed by non-metals or polyatomic anions, yon ay acid. So all you need to do in naming base is to write the name of the metal or non-metal plus hydroxide. So ilagay nyo lang yung name ng metal or non-metal sa unang element, then the word hydroxide. So pinakasimple din ito. So sodium, example sodium plus hydroxide becomes or yields sodium hydroxide. Yung arrow na yan, matatawag, ang tawag dyan, hindi yan arrow na simple arrow lang. Kasi itong sinasabi kong sodium plus hydroxide yields sodium hydroxide, ito ay chemical reaction or chemical process. So when we are going to write a chemical equation, you have to properly write a symbol of the element plus the plus and the arrow. The arrow yields or produces. Yun ang ibig sabihin. So what did magnesium? Let's go back on our our preliminary, which was what did magnesium and chlorine say to gold when she walked into the room? The answer is AU. Come over here. Because gold is AU. So like, hey, hey. So AU. Okay? Okay. So that's all for today. I hope you have learned new things today. And then next meeting again, we have to discuss another lesson. Thank you and have a nice day.